Hello, William, Anavi. Thank you all for making the time. Anavi, thank you for making the time during your holiday period, mathematics period. Awesome to see you here. Let's just give another minute. So we can get started. Hello, Golden, Papivara, VT, Hopper. Thank you for joining. I guess we can get started as we wait for others hopefully to join. Good day to all, and thank you so much for attending. You know, it's also a great excitement speaking with you, with our community today. A special high five to our friends who connected to GitHub and level up to developer role and have help out our core team in testing our EVM domain named Nova, which is a huge is a huge platform for those who want to zap their Solidity contracts into action without the fuss of creating their domain. Also, massive thanks to ambassadors and the community for the support, also promotion our efforts across many channels and many platforms. We have observed, it hasn't going to notice the growth in followers and also notable surge in community messages, not just on Discord, but in previously let's say not so active categories on forum, like for the ambassador forum, for example, is on fire. Can't thank you enough for your engagement, cross-functional collaboration. But beyond these figures, I think we should value the particularly diverse involvement of the community and the vibe you're bringing in. By engaging in your doc context, contributing to the development of the farmer office hours, riding the wave with our new Pulsar releases, showing increased interest in the stake wars, which we'll discuss later. Your attention to technical upgrades, like the concept of proof of time, that solidifies our consensus. We have recently detailed more about this on our blog we publish. I think a couple of
Have we lost Fradiq? Has anyone else lost him?
Yeah, he cut out for me as well. Looks like your mic dropped out there, Fradiq.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll finish up for Fradiq. Yeah, it's just really grateful to everyone in the community, of course. So today we are lucky enough to have the captain of our starship, Jeremiah, on deck with us. I'm going to be asking him a few questions to drill into Subspace's strategic direction and positioning in the coming months and years. We will hold time at the end of this segment to answer any questions from the community, so please do pop them in the chat, and we'll have a look through the after the initial discussion. Note that we will be discussing subjects that are core to the success of the project, so please do chime in with any questions or feedback, good or bad. We want to hear both. We're keen to hear how well you guys, the community, understands our plan, and we want to hear your questions and concerns about that plan. So without further ado, Jeremiah, it's great to have you here today.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for the introduction. Really happy to be here. Really happy to talk to the community. I'm glad to see that we've got our core community, so many of our ambassadors here. And yeah, really looking forward to getting some feedback here.
Great. So we're just going to have a little fireside chat, aren't we, Jeremiah? So first question I have is, it's been a long journey to get Subspace to where we are today. Can you just talk a little bit about how the vision for the project has evolved over the years?
Yeah, certainly. It has been a long journey over the last 5 years since the first version of the Subspace white paper was published, and it's evolved into a layer one blockchain. And we've found our way with what the ultimate use cases of Subspace is going to be. I think throughout that process, while Subspace has what Subspace looks like or what it is in terms of the actual thing that we're building has changed or has uh, you know developed over time. I think the mission and the core values of the project have never really changed. And when we first launched our mission, which was really kind of as a mission-driven organization, that was what we put on the website as the tagline, and the value prop was a free and fair blockchain for all. And that hasn't changed at all. If anything, we've made it more inclusive as we've thought about what is all, and maybe that's more encompassing than we originally thought. Maybe it's not just humans. Maybe it includes AI as well. So the mission has definitely become more refined over time, and I think the values as well. Some of the core values that we always talk about have been things like openness, transparency, open source, valuing open systems over closed systems. We've talked a lot about autonomy. We use the word permissionless a lot to describe that. That's very much a Web3 word, but maybe for a general audience, we might say just autonomy, freedom from control. That's one of the core value props of blockchain, crypto, and Web3 to begin with, but that extends well beyond things like DeFi. And just trying to create a level playing field for everyone, trying to lower the barriers to entry. Originally, that was around farming and making consensus accessible to all. But there's a lot in the economy and in the digital infrastructure in the world that's not accessible to all. And so we've always been interested in just making sure that you could say equality of opportunity. Everybody has a fair chance. We can't guarantee the outcomes, but we can at least give everyone a fair start.
Yeah, so accessibility, and I hear it said a lot. How do we reach the next billion Web3 users? And it's been at the core of the protocol, certainly since I've known the project, which is great. We've never diverged from that one core principle. Okay, so we've recently announced our target mainnet beta date, and these are exciting times within the project. So we've started to think about use cases that will drive demand for Subspace and our native utility coin SSC. Jeremiah, can you give us your thoughts on how we're going to ensure we hit the ground running in February?
Yeah, for sure. Use cases has been top of mind for us for a long time. Several years ago, we figured out how to build a scalable blockchain. It's taken us that long to actually build it. And the question has always been, what is the actual use case for a scalable blockchain, and especially a blockchain that can really run at internet scale or global scale? And that has been a long journey of trying to figure that out and understand that, and also understanding not only what is the use case, but what is the path to getting global adoption to onboarding the entire world into Web3. And we've experimented with a lot. We built a lot of different applications that we've played with. We've talked to a lot of people, and we've explored a lot of areas. And I think if we look at AI and the impact that something like ChatGPT has had starting last year, that has really emerged as perhaps the most important use case in tech, in the internet, and especially in Web3. It just hasn't always been clear exactly like what that use case looks like between Web3 and AI, or what is that intersection between Web3 and AI. And that's what we've really been focusing on, trying to unpack that and figure out what special role Subspace has to play there. There's a couple of takeaways that we have on this. The first is that AI can actually unlock mass adoption, the sort of long awaited, long expected, long foretold mass adoption of Web3, mainly through the user interface and user experience problem. through some kind of a dynamic agentic interface that abstracts away a lot of the complexity of Web3 for the average person. So we're really bullish on that. That's one of the things that we're focused on delivering at Mainnet. Another aspect is this broader alignment problem in AI. This challenge of making sure that AI is ultimately good, and especially things like AGI, or artificial general intelligence, or superintelligence as it's called sometimes, and figuring out how to do this in a more bottom-up way rather than sort of the top-down approach of just having a company like Google or OpenAI build one massive superintelligence and control it. We're trying to figure out, well, is there a way that we can use Web3 to build this from the bottom up? And I'm not talking about running AI on the blockchain or using the blockchain for training AI. Those are interesting use cases. There's a lot of interesting work being done there, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm really talking about just using AI as a tool to help align, using Web3 as a tool to help align AI that's really running off chain, or kind of the existing AI that's out there in the world. I think kind of if we put these two things together, it's really clear that there's going to be a lot of AIs in the future, in the very near future. There's going to be a range of different types of AI. There's going to be autonomous AI that's acting completely independently. That's a little bit scarier, but we just have to face that reality. We hope that there's going to be a lot of AI companions, personal assistants, that are going to be as common as smartphones, and humans as well, that are all going to be interacting online. And the Web3 really provides the right kind of infrastructure for onboarding all of these different users in a fully permissionless way, in a way where there's no gatekeepers, where there's no offboarding or delisting like we're seeing with bots in most Web2 platforms, especially AI. And just kind of understanding that the future is not about separating humans and AI online. This is not, it's probably impossible. It's debatable whether that's what we actually want. And thinking a little bit more openly about, okay, like if it's a free and fair blockchain for all, then it's probably AI is included in that. And we need to really think deeply about that, and think that, well, maybe the actual end users, or sorry, not the end users, but the users that are interfacing with the blockchain at global scale, when we have billions of people using Web3, it's not going to be the people interacting with the blockchain directly. It's going to be agents or AI interacting on behalf of people. And that's going to be how we're going to make it more accessible for everyone. And so that's kind of how we're thinking broadly about the use cases. I can dive into some of those more specifically if you'd like.
Yeah, so if I'm following along, then the idea is that we're trying to avoid this kind of huge centralized idea of AI controlled by a few mega corporations, and we're going to try and flip that on its head. And the idea is that we're going to have this bottom-up approach to ensuring that everyone has a voice in this burgeoning market of AI, or that it's everywhere, isn't it? You can't really avoid it at the moment. So that's really interesting. So how are we going to go about that, Jeremiah?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Jim. And let me give an example to make it a little bit more concrete, or to contrast that. So if you look at, let's say, OpenAI and WorldCoin as two examples of leading projects in AI and Web3, and especially at the intersection of those two, the premise of OpenAI is we're going to build centralized superintelligence, AGI, or some company in the world is going to build that. It's going to be one like singular monolithic program or AI that's running on some cluster that they control, and that this is going to completely change the world. It's going to lead to a lot of loss of jobs through automation. This is going to require us to have something like universal basic income, and that some company like OpenAI or Anthropic, whoever the first one is to solve this, is then going to basically suck up most of the wealth in the world. They're going to suck up most of the value, probably become the most valuable company in the world, and then they're going to have to redistribute that wealth back to the people through universal basic income, and that a blockchain or Web3 is really the right way to do that. And this leads into kind of proof of personhood and their whole approach here, to just, from the very top, kind of in a more like command economy, like the old style communism, or some types of socialism where, the role of the government is just to redistribute the wealth back to everyone and try to equalize everything. And alongside this, that there's a philosophy that AI is kind of bad, it's dangerous, it's scary. Web3 is going to protect us from that, and that we're going to have this like clean separation between humans and AI online. That something like proof of personhood will allow us to have. And so that's kind of what we're trying to avoid, that whole narrative. We disagree with a lot of that, and we see Subspace playing like a really critical role in a counter narrative, which would be something like, hey, instead of one company controlling one giant AI, what if we have every person in the world with their own personal AI, and then we can use Web3 to collectively organize all of these personal AIs that are acting on behalf of people and lead to kind of a bottom-up intelligence. So one way to think about this is you can say like Reddit is kind of like, it's often described as the hive mind of the internet. It's just lots of people coming together, and some interesting ideas, interesting things, memes come out of this just naturally. They just kind of emerge out of the system. And you could say, well, what if we did that? What if we had that sort of on steroids, where you had AIs that were facilitating this, which were acting on behalf of people, kind of representing them, reflecting their beliefs, their values, their wishes, the problems that they're trying to solve. And you can imagine this is kind of a Web2 social network, but then it's, well, some company's going to control that as well, right? Whoever could, Reddit, let's say, is going to basically control that intelligence. But if we look at Web3, we can have something like a DAO where no one really controls this. It's just part of the network. It's a decentralized social network, and that this bottom-up approach will lead to a collective. Like, not only will it be collectively owned, which is much better than being centrally owned, but it will also lead to collective alignment. This basically social consensus, like AI facilitated social consensus, which will act to align this emergent collective superintelligence, which is possible through this. And along these lines, it's not that we need to, like, well, if we go back to UBI, we don't need UBI anymore, because everyone still is able to retain their value, because everyone is able to participate in this new way of collaborating online. They're using AI to maintain their relevance. Like, basically, the AI is making them much more effective, much more productive. It's a partner versus a competitor. And so this means we don't need UBI. We're not using blockchain as a way to redistribute the wealth. We're using blockchain as a way to generate wealth by unlocking this new, let's call it like an autonomous economy, or an autonomous economic system. And therefore, we really want to strengthen the bonds between human and AI, and just accept that anything a person does online is probably something that they delegated to an AI assistant at the end of the day. It's just kind of, it's going to be impossible to say like, oh, well, this was made by a human and this was made by an AI. They're just going to become interwoven. And that's what we're trying to make, to use Web3 to facilitate or to kind of help bring about this new future.
Yeah, I see someone's used the word in the chat, dystopian, and kind of having the notion that we need UBI thrust upon us by these huge corporations. It is essentially what we're trying to avoid, isn't it? So I read your post recently. Maybe someone can drop it in the chat, on Humaism. And the Humaic thesis. It was very interesting, and so this is where really, at the core of everything, the idea is that it's not a tool in the hands of the few. The idea is that we're all empowered by use of these agents, our personal agents, and they turn us into humans plus, if I'm understanding correctly, and that then leads us to be able to organize with this OCI theory that's in your blog post. Did you want to just talk a little bit about Humaism and Humaic thesis?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Yeah, that's kind of the philosophy underpinning everything that we're talking about here. And the idea is that there's a big problem with AI, and that we don't know how to align it. There's a lot of threats, like existential threats to humanity, if we don't align it. In the worst case, it could kill us all. In the next worst case, one company will control the world, the first company to get superintelligence. And even in the least bad case, there's a lot of job loss and automation that's going to occur and a lot of disruption to the economy. And so we're trying to think about, okay, well, what is the solution to this? Well, maybe if we don't think of AI as a thing in itself, or just as a goal in itself, which a lot of companies, this is literally their stated mission goal, just to produce this intelligence for its own sake because we can, and it's maybe the next stage in an evolution or something like that. This sort of like religious view about artificial general intelligence is like almost like creating God or something. It's a little bit strange when you really look at it. We're saying, well, instead of doing that, let's treat AI as a tool. That is what technology means. It literally means a tool to help people to do things. And let's look at AI as a companion. And let's do it in a way which is based on this kind of philosophy, which you alluded to about humanism, which basically says, hey, instead of rooting this in science and technology, we need to root it in the humanities. We need to think about improving the human condition rather than just achieving AI for its own sake. It's got to be human-centric, meaning instead of something like ChatGPT is aligned towards some kind of supposed group values. It's some person has to have the idea of like what is the right society, and then or what is the right moral code, and then they have to align this AI to that moral code. And we know, that the world is full of lots of diversity, lots of diverse political, social, religious, moral value systems, and everyone's unique as well. Every single person has their own unique value system, and so we need to align AI to the individual, not to the group. And then if we have this, as you said, open collective intelligence, which is kind of what I was trying to get at with Web3 and using a DAO and using AI assistants to facilitate some kind of a social network. If we have like all of these individually aligned AIs built in this kind of humanistic, like humanic companion approach, then that will lead to this collective superintelligence, collective alignment, and hopefully a much better, more, I wouldn't say utopian, but at least more positive, better future than we have today, and certainly better than this dystopian kind of like 1984, everything's controlled by OpenAI, or the Terminator scenario, or any of the just watch a sci-fi movie in AI, and you can see kind of the future that we might have ahead of us potentially.
Yeah, it rarely ends well in those movies. Absolutely. So just to bring that back to how specifically that relates to subspace and driving demand on our network. The blog post mentions a few products that we're proposing that we're going to be kind of fleshing out in the next couple of months or in the lead up to mainnet. Do you want to pick a couple to talk on, Jeremiah?
Yeah, for sure. So the way that we are trying to realize this concretely within Subspace is we're trying to build effectively the first humanic companion, which makes the most sense for Web3. And so, put it simply, that's an AI wallet. And we're going to call that AI wallet Auto. It's going to be the backbone of a suite of products. And this is an AI wallet not built for, it's not going to look like MetaMask. It's not going to look like any of the wallets that most of us use today. It's going to look like something that anyone in the world can use, something that my mother could use, or anyone that doesn't really know. They know how to use the internet, they know how to use a mobile app, but they don't really know what Web3 is. They don't understand the background. They just kind of get that, yeah, it allows me to control my identity. It allows me to control my money, to operate more autonomously online. This wallet is going to have more like a chatbot interface. I don't want to say it's going to look exactly like something like ChatGPT or Claude, if you're familiar with Anthropic. It's going to be more of like a dynamic interface, which will have a chat component to it. But this will be basically a personalized AI that is going to abstract away a lot of the complexity of Web3 for the user. And this is going to be things like managing private keys, sending transactions back and forth across the blockchain, initially for Subspace, event later for all of Web3 and Web2 as well, trying to bridge all these different payment networks, kind of abstract it away, simplify it, and doing the same thing for identity. online identity management, password management, authentication, sign-on, all of these things, which there are many tools that do these things today, but they're kind of clunky, they're hard to use, they're mainly used by power users or like automation junkies, which, I put myself in that category. The real promise of AI is that, with agents, we can train these things and they can learn how to do these things on our behalf. And this technology is advancing very, very quickly, and the capabilities are improving very, very quickly. And it's really right now we're on the horizon of this being possible, and we think a wallet is the right way to do it.
That's really interesting. It's not the only product. We've in the blog post that's been linked a little further up the chat there. You'll see there are some plans for some other products in a similar vein. We're limited on time today, but I do notice that we've had a great, if somewhat lengthy, question from Jonathan. So I agree, Jonathan. I think we've covered the first half of your question, but Jonathan's question is: do you worry our shift towards these AI suite of products is going to be a distraction for the Subspace Labs team versus the protocol? And I think it's worth kind of touching on. We're actually planning to restructure organizationally slightly, aren't we? I know that we've talked about Humaic Labs, but could you just elaborate on what our plans there are, Jeremiah?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jonathan. So sure. So there's really two components to Subspace at a really high level. There's the blockchain protocol, and then there's the application layer that sits above the blockchain, which consists of the smart contracts running on the network. It consists of the user interfaces like the wallet, the block explorer, the CLI, the farmer, all of that stuff. And nothing that I talked about with AI is changing any of the core protocol. It is giving us some better ideas of what some maybe foundational smart contracts might look like. For example, an identity registry or a DAO. But even these are just like elaborations on things that already exist, like the decentralized identity framework or MakerDAO as an example. It's not like we're reinventing the wheel. The infrastructure is basically the same. It's just a matter of doing it at scale. And the application layer is still all there as well. We're still going to have this suite of, your standard kind of Web3 user interfaces. What we're doing, and none of that is changing, and all of that is still the primary focus of the Subspace team. What we're trying to do is to really wrap all that up into a kind of a unified app, which simplifies that for the average person. And this is a new initiative the Auto app that we're working on within Subspace, and we have the resources to do this, and we're expanding the team appropriately to handle this. So it's not really taking away from what the Subspace core team is doing. It's just new stuff that we're doing with new people. And then besides this, we've actually set up a sister organization called Humaic Labs, and Humaic is focused on doing research and development on this idea of Humaic intelligence. We're building a framework called Sapiel, which is a developer framework for building these personalized AI agents. The Auto app is actually being built using this framework, which we've already built the first version of the framework, not the app. And so there's a lot. I guess there's a lot more happening behind the scenes. I guess I wouldn't say it's a distraction. It's a necessary use case. It's going to be great for the Subspace network in terms of driving demand. It's going to also, the way we see it, really be critical for humanity's future too. We believe that this will, if we can bring the users onto the platform through this wallet, that will, and we can build this core infrastructure around identity and payments as well at the smart contract application layer. That will really bring on. That will be the best way to bring developer demand onto the platform. So we're going to be shifting our focus towards more of users and you would say maybe more broad consumer interest in Subspace and Auto. and let the developers come after that has been achieved.
Yeah, and of course, Subspace lends itself very well to this high demand use case because fundamentally it's designed with the decoupled execution model allows us to grow, without limits. We're going to talk a little bit about domains and execution in Stake Wars in a short while, but the important thing is that Subspace is a great foundation to build these products on. Okay, we allocated half an hour to this section. Thanks very much, Jeremiah. That was really enlightening. I appreciate that there's probably a lot of information for people to take in, but we are super keen to hear your feedback on everything we're discussing today. So we're going to hold another Q&A session at the end of the call. So please do pop any thoughts, feedback, questions, concerns. Add them into the chat, and we'll take a look through towards the end of the call. Thanks again, Jeremiah.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem. Okay, Fredik, are your audio issues resolved? Can we hear you?
Yeah, I hope you can hear me now. My apologies for my fallible connectivity. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yeah, absolutely loud and clear. So you're going to talk on the ambassador program.
If I'm not mistaken, and again, apologies in advance if I'm being repetitive. I bumped into the internet gremlins just before I was acknowledging the ambassadors for and the wider community for not just for the usual technical support and promotion across social media. We have observed a growth just in followers, a notable surge in community message, but this is not just about statistics of leaderboards. It is what we've seen and makes us proud is the vibes and also the multidisciplinary participation and the involvement on various fronts we have opened recently. Engaging with our docs contents, community members contributing to the developer and farmer office hours, riding the wave of our Pulsar releases, the growing interest in the Stake Wars, which I think Jim will discuss later on, and your attention and feedback to new concepts like the proof of time that solidifies our consensus. All of that has made us really not just grow statistically, but also made us a more robust and multidisciplinary, and it gives us so much oxygen to all of us. Massive love to all of you. Now, speaking of ambassadors in particular, in order community center as we are, it is I think operationally and I think even ideologically impossible to evolve into the new new elements, the new AI integrations, the new AI use cases, leveraging Nova and all the new technical upgrades that we have planned for the near future without seamless community collaboration and community support. On the ambassador program, for example, we are really focused on exponential growth. Some of this has already been tangible and visible. There were increasing numbers of leads in the support guild. There are strategies to engage from the engagement team to escalate our engagement activities to third-party platforms to amplify our activities and rewards. The content team is very diligently working to refresh our educational plan, considering the latest shifts in our journey towards AI integrations, and also explore the idea of agentic AI that Jeremiah and Jim have thoroughly spoken about. But for the future, we really are devoted all the resources we have in order to expand the number of true believers and the number of ambassadors who can help us out in educating new incomers and actually making it happen. So as of now, on that said, on this background, I would like to announce that today, as I speak, we are launching the call for new candidates to join on our ambassador program. I'm going to share the form right here, right now. Of course, we're going to expand this communication through our social media, and we all more than welcome to join. We are doing our utmost to provide all the educational resources and the mentoring. We even created the new onboarding guild within the ambassador program, totally devoted to facilitate the onboarding of new community members that might not be super familiar with the novelties of our consensus and with all this new road ahead that Jeremiah has expounded. So you're more than happy to join. Eagerly waiting for your applications, and yes, let's go and make it happen.
Super exciting. So the new cohort, new ambassador cohort is open. If that's right, Fredik?
Yes, new ambassador cohort is opening. We really look forward for the wider community, those who are not ambassadors or apprentices, to fill the form. I will also share our Subspace ambassador page here in the chat, but also in the notifications that we're going to send out via Twitter, via LinkedIn, and so you can get familiar and see all the benefits, and not really also the learning curve that all ambassadors earn from participating in this. It's really very active, very exciting, and I think is the magnitude, the magnetic added magnitude we need to push our plans forward. We all more than welcome, and can't wait to see you.
Absolutely. Keep an eye out for the application form if being an ambassador interests you. Okay, thanks for the updates on the program. We've also got something else exciting going on at the moment in the ambassador program. We've got Jonathan. Those who aren't aware, Jonathan is the lead ambassador of our governance guild, and he's been hard at work for I want to say 3 months, maybe even longer now, pulling together like a set of articles around self-governance and how the program is going to stand up on its own and be scalable and sustainable going forward. I'm going to try and share my screen quickly because Jonathan is kindly going to walk us through some updates. Jonathan, are you there? Can we hear you?
Hey.
Jonathan.
Thanks, Jim.
No problem. I've put your slide up. Hopefully you can see that. You just have to shout for slide and I'll oblige.
Sounds perfect. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Governance Guild and the work we've been up to. I just want to say thank you to everybody that's been participating and to the team. It's been a lot of work to try to push forward some self-governance proposals. And the team, we started in June, so it's almost 4 months. We've been meeting weekly over the past 2 solid months at least to try to create a draft. Oh, sorry, Jim, slide. To create a draft of some proposed bylaws. Those bylaws are almost complete now. I think we've got just 2 or 3 open items to try to pin down to get to a first draft. And then we're going to be sending that out to the community, to the foundation, to labs for comments, to get the feedback from everybody, integrate changes that need to be made before we can get it actually adopted. I'm going to run you guys through a little bit of what it contains just to sort of advertise the subjects that we're talking about, really with the goal of A, making the community aware, and B, for those of you in the audience that are interested in these topics and interested in governance and self-governance, would love to have more participation. Slide. So the bylaws are arranged in a set of articles. It outlines the purpose and mission of the program, and specifically this is covering the ambassador program. talked about why the program exists, the roles of the program, and what we're expected to do, and talked about the community values. Article 1 is going to describe the role of Subspace Foundation as the sponsor of the program. It'll define their, oversight and veto rights. They'll also cover admitting and terminating ambassadors from the program, ambassador agreements, etc. And then it'll delegate the rest of the administration of the program to the ambassador group. Article 2 will talk about the roles of ambassadors, what's an ambassador, what's a lead ambassador. It'll cover a proposed new process for us to onboard ambassadors so that we can really scale this up. So it proposes a new role of an applicant and a self-governing system to promote applicants to apprentice, where then apprentices can be selected for ambassadors. There's a peer review process that's also outlined in Article 2 that'll talk about how do we, evaluate each other and keep people accountable that they're contributing to the program. Slide. In Article 3, it'll talk about teams, and the program's mainly run through teams. We have two kinds of teams. There are official teams, which basically means that they have one or more lead ambassador roles assigned to them. An official team means we expect that they need some, longer-term, dedicated, semi-permanent leadership and support. We also have ad hoc teams, and an ad hoc team could be formed by any group of ambassadors. If, two or more ambassadors get together and want a team to start doing something, they can feel free to form a team. And if that team gains traction and is creating value, then they can propose to the ambassadors for that team to be elevated to an official team, which would grant a lead ambassador slot for that team. We have a couple of permanent ad hoc teams. So these are teams that we want to be long lasting, but we don't want authority in place or semi-permanent leadership, but they need to exist permanently. So there's an agenda team that really is set up to control the agenda for the General Assemblies and talk about what things can be voted on, et cetera. And then that agenda team would be made up of representatives from each official team that official teams would elect and send. And then there's a permanent conflict resolution team, which we can think of as a jury. The initial round, I think we'll just use sortition and randomly select 5 ambassadors to mediate conflicts for periods of like 3 months or something like that. And again, I should caveat this, should have caveated earlier. All of this is, the Governance Guild, small group of people got together and wrote a bunch of proposals. So this is our proposal. None of this is implemented or in place, and all of it is subject to community review and feedback and collaboration with the ambassadors and labs, et cetera. And then there's a 4th article, which really talks about the way that we make decisions, whatever agreements, talks about transparency, which we think it's really important that decisions are transparent, that they're available to the public, and they can be made available at any time to anybody. The principle of subsidiarity, where we're trying to have decisions be made at the lowest level, or I don't necessarily like thinking about it that way, but at the decisions being made by the people and the teams that they're affected by, not sort of some top-down structure. So it's very cellular, team-driven. And then Article 4 talks about the General Assembly, which is the way that we'd make decisions that affect a lot of ambassadors or span multiple teams. And I think those are the highlights. So overall, the program is intended to be voluntary, democratic, as permissionless as possible. It's not quite permissionless because it's obviously a permissioned group with admittance and applications and things like that. But once the governance of the group itself, we're intending to be quite permissionless. So slide. So what's next? As I said, we're just about done with the first draft of the bylaws. We will be sending that out maybe by the end of this month, certainly next month. We'll be managing the process of getting feedback from other ambassadors, from foundation, labs, from the community, working through a revision process. Then we'd expect to take that for ratification to get consensus and acceptance on the bylaws and make them official. And then be working with the foundation on creating the actual ambassador agreements to sort of formalize this entire structure, and then implementing things like the peer review process, conflict resolution, and agenda teams, making sure that the that the core aspects of what the bylaws implement get stood up. And then we'll be, responding to the way it's all working. Slide.
Yeah, if I may, sorry to highlight some of the Jonathan's inputs. I really want to highlight the formidable work that Jonathan has led, especially throughout Forum, in actually putting forth and bringing to debate an unprecedented engagement to discuss some transformative issues, and I would say essential issues that model out our current ambassador program. Discussions on economic management, transformative operational revisions, possible developments in the onboarding criteria, reevaluating how the peer review mechanics and dynamics is. All of those are very complex themes, and Jonathan has been able to magnetize all ambassadors from all guilds, has in a very impressive cross-functional effort to discuss and improve all of these fronts, which are not easily managed, to be honest. So yeah, I extend my gratitude to you, Jonathan, and thank you so much for coming here today and enlightening us on this.
Thanks. I just want to send a call. We're open for contribution. Even if you're not an ambassador, you're welcome to join our weekly meetings. Please provide comments. If you want to get in touch, hit me up on Discord and general chat. Thanks.
Thanks, Jonathan. We want to encourage anyone who this subject interests to get involved. As Jonathan said, you don't have to be an ambassador to discuss how the ambassador program should look. The debate is all going on in the forum, and you can dive straight in. You can catch up on the discussion and have your thoughts heard there. I did see a question. So did someone ask for an AMA? Will there be an AMA? Fumo696, do you have a specific question? Do you want to drop that in the chat? We are going to hold some time at the end. I just want to quickly talk about a subject that I know a few of you are interested in, our incentivized staking contest, Stake Wars. We recently dropped a forum post on the subject that provides increased clarity on how the initiative will be structured. And I want to take a look at that information we've made available. First, a very lightning quick recap on our decoupled execution environments. As we talked about earlier, Subspace does have domains, and they are designed in such a way, Subspace is designed in such a way that supporting infinite domains is theoretically possible. This is how we're going to handle the throughput, the demand that our suite of tools, AI-assisted tools, are going to bring. Domains are designed to be inexpensive to create, and we thought of in a similar way to L2 rollups. But farmers don't execute transactions on these domains. Instead, the farmers are there for consensus and ensuring consistency when working out which order those transactions should be processed in. The actual execution itself is carried out by our new class of network citizen, the operator. Operators run a Subspace node in a slightly different configuration to farmers, and instead of plotting and solving solutions to earn block and vote rewards, they earn transaction fees, which are paid to them by users of the domain, those who want their transactions executed. A concept that's going to be familiar to anyone who's understands how gas and Ethereum work. Similar relationship. Operators have to commit a slashable stake to the protocol, which is used to disincentivize any malicious behavior. It's providing crypto and economic security to the network. If they behave badly, they get slashed. Any token holder is also able to stake to their preferred operator. So we have the notion of self-stake for an operator, but then they can also someone else can nominate stake. Doing that increases the operator's total stake, which in turn increases their chance of being selected as a bundle producer. And it's the bundle producer that will earn the transaction fees. This means that the more self and nominator stake an operator has, the more transactions they will process and the more fees they will earn. In return for their stake, the nominator will earn a portion of the transaction fees the operator earns. This means that any token holder, including farmers, are able to increase their stack through staking. So it's a new way to earn credits. So how have we turned this this dynamic into a competition? Stake Wars, which is our opportunity to test all the moving parts that make up execution and staking on the Subspace network. We also want to build a vibrant and engaged network of operators who will join us on mainnet. There will be a dedicated reward pool separate from the Gemini 3 incentivized testnet rewards, which is currently underway for Stake Wars. That reward pool is set at 0.6% of total token supply, and will be split between operators and nominators. Those rewards will be allocated based on the transaction fees both operators and nominators are able to accrue during the contest, which is just like mainnet. Stake Wars will run on the next iteration of the network, which is Gemini 3G. And as there's a dependency on 3G being ready, we currently have it in our DevNet at the moment. Our exact start date isn't yet known, but we are able to share our plans relative to what the TBC start date will be. So let's just take a quick look at what that means. So we've got this split into 5 phases. Phase 0 orbit, which we are aiming for 17 days before the launch of Stake Wars. And that phase 0 will be Gemini 3G is launched by the team with rewards disabled. Gemini 3F, the current network, will remain running and incentivized. So any farmers out there, you're going to realize that you're going to be presented with a dilemma on which network or networks to run on. Gemini 3F incentives will be turned off and 3G incentives turned on at the same time. It is up to the individual farmers what they want to do. Obviously, there's going to be an advantage to having some sectors plotted on 3G when we announce that switch over. But it is in your hands how you want to approach that conundrum. Also in phase 0, Nova, our EVM domain, will be deployed, but it will only be running, that will restrict that domain to running a single operator, our Genesis operator, by an allow list. And that prevents anyone jumping the gun and trying to start operating on Nova before Stake Wars starts. 14 days before the start of the main contest, we've got phase 1, which we're calling Planetfall. And after a short period of stability, the Gemini 3F incentivized rewards end block will be announced on a community call. And on that same call, rewards will be enabled on Gemini 3G. So that's our rewards cutover. Farmers will want to be up and plotting sectors as quickly as possible, so they're ready to start building their operator stake. That's an important point. If you're interested in being an operator, you're going to need to farm your stake. Note that transfers will be enabled on Gemini 3G, so operator wallets can have TSSC sent to them from any farmer who agrees to do so, a new dynamic to the network. Then we moved into the start of Stake Wars, phase 2, base building. Operator registration is enabled for everyone. We remove that allow list. And after registering, operators will be able to spin up their nodes and start executing on Nova. Nomination will remain disabled at this phase. This is the start of the contest for operators. And we've got instructions. I'm going to drop the link to the forum post in the chat shortly. You'll find there's some operator and staking documentation that Emil has produced. Then phase 3, so after 14 days of operators running on Nova, nomination is enabled with a domain runtime upgrade. Anyone holding TSSC can nominate their preferred operator. This is the start of the contest for nominators. Why would you sit on your stack earning nothing when you could be accumulating more TSSC by picking a strong operator and getting a portion of their transaction fees? And of course, earning real rewards because of the reward pool. Finally, after phase 4 end game, which is going to come 42 days after the start of Stake Wars, a pre-announced block will pass to end the wars. It marks the end of the campaign, and transaction fees are no longer counted towards a share of the reward pool. Our plan at the moment is that we're going to leave the network running for an extended phase of cooperation. The idea being that we can take a look in more depth at any issues we find with the pressure off, without the competition. So a more collaborative, friendly stage to help us discover, define and solve problems. So in conclusion, our overarching goal for Stake Wars is to shake down domains, execution and the staking functions. We do anticipate that challenges will arise, things will break and unforeseen issues will come to light. We ask that you judge us on the transparency and fairness of our response to those events when they happen, rather than the fact that they have occurred on our testnet. Please do take a look at the additional notes on the forum post, because there's some really important information on there, not least of which is that anyone who wants to be an operator needs to get familiar with farming as soon as possible. And we do hope that you will join us for Stake Wars. Okay, so we've got a few minutes left for some questions. Pradeep, could you help me out? Have we got any that you want to pluck out? Have we got anything about the kind of the positioning and the AI alignment problems that we talked about earlier?
No, I see mostly on Stake Wars specificities. Why doesn't the nominator just run their own node? Why would he need to stake the validator? That's a question from SNS. And all the others above also revolve around the Stake Wars. Would you like to cover that?
Yeah, sure. So why doesn't the nominator just run their own node? Why would he need to stake the validator? There's nothing stopping someone, if you've got the min stake, maybe they don't have the min stake. So I should point out that that's the Stake Wars domain that we're going to use is going to have min stake set to a value which is going to be an order of magnitude lower than mainnet. So to make sure that we don't, to make sure that operators have skin in the game and a real incentive not to act in a way that we wouldn't, expect them to, or even maliciously, they're going to need to put up a considerable chunk, an asset that makes it worthwhile, or makes it not worthwhile due to slashing, for them to act in a way, act maliciously. So I guess that's one of the main barriers. The requirements are going to be different as well. You're going to need to have more compute rather than space. So I guess if you've got the hardware and you've got the min stake, there's absolutely no reason why you wouldn't become an operator. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, and I can add in, Jim, that the main goal with the design and the separation between operators and nominators is just, again, back to accessibility, making it open to as many people as possible. The hardware requirements for an operator are something like a desktop gaming PC, but lots and lots of people, ideally millions, maybe billions of people, will have subspace credits eventually. We want to make it so that anyone can stake and earn staking rewards as well. And so you can think of this as, for most nominators, this is really just earning interest on a savings account, basically.
Yeah, great analogy. And that kind of speaks to a question I can see from Humo696. Will anyone be able to support mainnet and getting rewards, or will you choose some, or will there be no home for noders? If you're familiar with other protocols, when we talk about staking, other protocols, especially some that are in the proof of space domain, you may have to buy something to participate in the network. As a farmer, you absolutely don't have to. One of the core principles of the protocol is that it's inclusive. You rock up with your spare capacity and you start farming. You don't need to go off and buy some coins, Fumo. So we're not introducing a barrier to entry for farmers. As I say, we can't do the same for operators, because then there's no incentive for them to not just say they've processed the transaction when they haven't really. Hopefully that makes sense. Do follow up if I've missed your question there. Okay, Jonathan. Will a 3F farmer be compatible with a 3G node? No, they're different networks. So you're asking quite a complicated question about how to handle that switchover. Okay, separate ports locations. So could you run a 3F and a 3G farmer on the same machine? I wouldn't like to kind of hazard a guess on what it would do to your bandwidth internally, but I don't think there's a restriction. I don't know if it is Nazar in the audience. Maybe he can confirm. But I think as long as you separate them, separate their ports as you suggest, and where the node database and the farmer plots are, I don't think there's a restriction on doing that. Okay, Nazar has answered. You would have to decide which network you want to dedicate space for. So that's a great point. Yeah. So do you want to allocate your large volume of space to 3F or 3G? Do you want to carry on earning rewards on the incentivized test net on 3F, or do you want to start farming your stake for 3G? Are there any other questions? Do we know what min stake? So Jonathan's asked another question here. Do we know what min stake will be for Stake Wars yet? Waiting to determine it based on token distribution at the start. So we haven't got a figure in mind. It's something that we're going to calculate based on the state of the network at the start of the contest, Jonathan. We don't have a value predefined, let's say. But we're going to aim to be inclusive. I know that our original messaging around Stake Wars suggested that there would be like a bootstrapping period where we would be very restrictive on who could join. That's now not the plan. The idea is that the min stake is something that's achievable to competent farmers. Fumo, okay, so Fumo's asked a technical question. Okay, we are at time, guys. Fredik, is there any particular question you wanted to pull out there before we sign off?
No, I would actually like to encourage Innovitic and all the others posting the questions to maybe transition them to the sport channels or even the general chat, so that we're able to answer async. These are very relevant questions, and we're eager to talk about it, especially if it concerns our new strategic position and whatnot. Staking, the stake work in particular, that we really want to get geared up. And yeah, we are unfortunately on time, and massive love and thanks for everyone for taking the time, squeezing in your calendar, and having made and participated in this event. Thank you all very much. Jem, and any last considerations?
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's taken the time to join us today. And as Fredik says, I see there's still some questions about that transition 3F to 3G. If you could take them to the farmer support channel for probably best or general, we will get to you. I've actually got a birthday party to attend now, so I won't be about for the next couple of hours, but I will definitely come and answer what I can a little bit later on. So yeah. Thanks, everyone. You can always get support in the in Discord, of course. We're always about. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining today.
Thank you all very much.